Welcome everybody to the Policy and Finance Committee on November 12th, 2025. Welcome. I will call this meeting to order. And as always, we'll jump right to approval of the meeting minutes. I read through them. They looked okay to me.
Looked fine to me, so I'll move approval.
All right.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. On to our action item of the day, or possible action item, an ordinance regarding chickens and rooster ownership. I'm guessing, Jessica, that will be you, but if there's somebody else who needs to talk first, let me know. Otherwise, it's all you.
Do I just push the button, or is it?
If the light's green, then you're on.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey everyone, I'm the supervisor for animal control with the city of Topeka. My name's Jessica Bowers. We are going to just go over some concerns that the city is having about owning chickens and roosters, and I'm ready whenever you guys are.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so The ordinance kind of goes all for fowl, so I tried to kind of break it down to just the chicken and roosters. So I try to stay on topic. This is kind of like a snowball effect, trying to get into so many other things about the ordinance. So if something's not clarified, just let me know and we'll just go from there. So my presentation overview, I'm going to go over our current process. I feel like not a lot of people know how things go behind the scenes. Oh, sorry. I'll go over a little bit about our current ordinances, then why an amendment is needed, number of fowl poultry calls of service. I'll go through an ordinance outline, kind of what was presented with the fowl poultry ordinance, new proposed chicken ordinance, and number of chickens, current chicken the chicken permit process, households out of compliance, and then a little question, frequently asked questions at the end. So our current process is we do have our chicken ordinance, very plain. It is very just basic, 50 feet from everybody's dwelling but their own. We don't really have anything in effect on how many you can own. You can own as many as you can, as long as it is up to our sanitation requirements. You can't just fit 30 chickens in a very small coop. We need to make sure that they get exercise, so forth. When we go on property, we always look for the violations that were complained about. If there is violations, we give them some time to fix the violations. If they're running at large, if we have someone who wants to be a witness to that running at large, if it's not us, we do give them running at large citations. We always let them know that if the problems are not fixed, citations can occur. Court can give directive to fix the violation, pay a fine, and or remove animals from property, but other than what we do out in the field, we don't really know what goes on in court. A lot of these don't go to court. We also assist with rehoming if owner asked or directed by court. We have no holding facility, which I kind of have down there at the bottom, for chickens or roosters. If a animal is running at large, we have in our SOPs that Shawnee County has to pick the animal up, but it's only if they are not owned. So if a chicken is running the block, we have to wait for Shawnee County. We cannot legally transport that animal. So that kind of makes it a little hard on us because we can't just kind of throw a rooster or a chicken in our vehicle and take it to Helping Hands. Helping Hands is only domestic only. So I have worked with different organizations and have networked to find placement for livestock, fowl, poultry in the past, since we don't have anything written to where we can take them, other than where Shawnee County takes them, which we have no contract with. Any questions? Okay. So again, we have no current limit on roosters or chickens. No permit is needed to house chickens on property. Coop needs to be 50 feet away from each dwelling but their own. Needs to be inside a fully enclosed pen and within a fully fenced-in area at all times. If they are out of their enclosed pen, it is considered running at large. So if you have an enclosed fence, if you let them out of their pen and they're still in the yard, that is still considered running at large. In our ordinance, an enclosed pen would be considered an enclosure that keeps chickens from running freely. It is very broad. Ordinance currently covers all waterfowl, which include chickens, ducks, geese, and turkeys. Ordinance includes all the above when it comes to restrictions and running at large. Any questions?
Yeah.
So I do believe that an amendment is needed. I have, even before this was brought up for council, I have looked into other organizations that deal with chickens, what their kind of baseline is, other cities, other ordinances that are kind of adequate sizing to us, which is hard. But I have kind of done a little bit of research on that. Increased number of households having chickens and roosters. Of course, everything's been increased. Our calls have been increased. So this is just one that naturally just increased with. Noise and nuisance complaints, we have gotten more of those. Roosters generally crow in the early morning, we know that. But chickens tend to be very loud when they're laying eggs, which is why I feel like a limit should be, in effect as well, because getting them together, if one's laying an egg and it's the loud one of the group, it kind of can just set off the other ones as well. So for noise and nuisance complaints, I do feel like there should be a limit. Health and sanitation, zoonotic diseases, salmonella and avian flu. I've had to unfortunately deal with a pretty large operation with roosters, and to try to get them placed was very hard because avian flu, it can still go to humans. We had to go through a lot of different steps because it is zoonotic and it spreads very easily. So I feel health and sanitation should be very big for housing any type of fowl at all. Strong odors, if not maintained properly. I've even looked on how they try to maintain the smell, because even if you clean it the best of your ability, chickens are going to have a smell. So if too many chickens and roosters are on property, it's harder to keep clean and disease-free. Inadequate shelter. If pens are not up to ordinance, wildlife can get inside of the coop and start a reoccurring pattern of unwanted visitors, and that tends to be where they bring friends. You have a raccoon come up one time, they might bring some others with them the next time if they know that there'll be food. So the more the chickens and roosters, the bigger the pens need to be, which kind of puts us into, is it 50 feet away from everybody's dwelling but the owners? Because if you have a lot of them, how much land do you really have, and is it going to stay 50 feet away from the neighbors? Any questions? Okay. I did this in September, but I'm sure it's up now. We don't necessarily have when it gets generated into the MDT, a way to really tell that it's fowl related. So I tried our best, but for 2024, at the end, it was 145, and in September, we were already at 127, and these calls were containing any type of fowl. So if we went and there was a dog running around, but then we found another existing issue with the number of chickens or roosters on property, this is what our MDT was showing, how many calls we had pertaining fowl in the city limits. Any questions? So going into what I feel would be best, I went over the ordinance that was given through Overland Park. Keep fowl poultry ordinances the same in the sense of adding on to the chicken and rooster, just adding on to the ordinance. So making an addition to the ordinance for chicken and roosters, we can add a chicken permit, and then kind of go over the household, what happens if a household is out of compliance, and then process on assisting with number of chicken and roosters. I feel like that is probably going to be one of the bigger problems. Is there is a lot that have, I know you guys proposed, I believe 6, and we talked about possibly trying to find a good number. Where is it? I'm going to jump a little bit here. So what I figured for number of chickens, I did research, and average amount of chickens in most ordinances is around 3 to 10. Some go by acreage. So I believe Overland Park goes by acreage, and I had another one from Shawnee County that I had in here. I've read so many, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I have it correct. So maximum of 10 chickens. And again, this gets very in-depth because you can go by square footage of chickens. For obviously the cruelty side of things, you can't just stick many in a small little coop. But it shows that to keep the noise level down, an average of 6 chickens is tolerable within short distance of just neighbors. I did try to put it in consideration with me just working out in the field for 4 years, how close these houses are and what could be obtainable. So I'm not opposed to just staying with 6 chickens. I just know that it definitely should not go over 10. I think 10 would definitely be pushing it if we were talking about noise complaint. So most families have chickens for eggs. So I mean, I want to bring that up. I want to put it in consideration. I don't know how many eggs people eat, but so a family of 4 would need, give or take, 4 to 6 hens for an average, for an adequate egg supply. I did talk to people. I did try to at least get some opinions, not just base it off of, what I thought. And, I'd say about 4 to 6. And of course, everything goes into, again, going down the rabbit hole here, the hormones of the chicken, the daylight for the chicken on how much eggs they lay. I know that I was kind of in the background wondering if we did approve an amount of chickens, if we wanted to come back or now and talk about how much room each chicken should get, because that is something I really saw in a lot of ordinances around us. I considered if we had 8 chickens, 24 square foot for the enclosure would need to be required, plus 50 feet away from each dwelling. It'd be about 3 square foot per chicken. That is if they are getting adequate exercise outside of the pen, which to our ordinance is kind of contradicting, because if they're outside the pen, they're running a large. So I don't really know what we'll do about that per se. I know some ordinance state that if they're outside being supervised by their owner, that it's not technically running at large, which is not, it's not set in our ordinance. Which we're not citing someone if they're out there supervising them, because a part of them running at large is getting injured by a type of animal or flying over the fence to their neighbor's yard, which is a big one on why they need to be in coops. Any questions? I know I kind of skipped a couple of things there. Okay. This was just stating our ordinance. I know the new one that you guys had for, we're kind of looking at Overland Park. We're talking about permits. So they can be issued a permit to have chickens in city limits. And I definitely don't think that that's a bad idea. I looked and the permits are running, I've seen like a whole type of different, $100 first initially, then $50 afterwards annually. I've seen even low as $25 annually. My thing is that I see that I kind of have a problem with in this ordinance is the fact that they initially inspect for the permit. I've talked to 2 different cities around us, one being Overland Park, and their animal control do go out the first initial visit. However, it goes through 2 different process points before it even gets to animal control. So it goes through planning first to make sure that they're even able to have chickens on that property, like they have enough space. They can say, okay, well, you have this many acres, you can only have 4 chickens. And then it goes through, I believe, another source. I don't know what that other source is, but it's planning and development, and then they push it on over to animal control. So it doesn't just flood animal control of calls, which I think is a very big deal, because we have 4 officers. We had initially 5 just to be able to fill. 1 got cut, and then we had me as a supervisor. So there'll only be 4 animal control officers and then a working supervisor. So I figured we can do it how we do our dog, cat, and potbelly pig permits. If we have an issue and we see that issue in the sense of not being tagged, we can give them a time frame to go get tagged with the city of Topeka and make sure that they get their permit. And if there's any issues that arise, we will go back and we will take care of the property as needed if they need to get rid of chickens, or if they are in violation of a rooster, or if they are in violation of just not having a permit. and then we can kind of cite or go through the process if needed. I did also look at Shawnee, Kansas, and they have community officers go first for approval before they send their animal control officers out. So I am seeing that they are going out after it's filtered through, so it doesn't waste animal control officers' time. In the sense of, we show up and there's no reason they should have a permit. I feel like the other, so Overland Park and Shawnee, they have it to where you can't have a permit at all. And I know how we do things is you aren't going to get denied a permit for your animal, like a potbelly pig or a like a dog or a cat getting tagged, if you don't have the paperwork with you. Like if you have the paperwork with you, you get pretty much approved. If there's problems at that house, we go and we take care of them in a different type of way, if that makes sense. Like we go and we do welfare checks, things like that, even if they are permitted. But I feel like going and initially checking out every permit, every property for a permit would take up a lot of our time. And it would be really hard, especially with all the construction trying to get across town. If we have a coop we need to inspect on 29th and Urish, and then we have to go all the way to Oakland, that takes up a lot of driving. And, we get called, for other calls of service in between everything. Like, so if a vicious pops up or, something a little bit more urgent, then, we're kind of back at square one. Do you have any questions there?
Not yet.
Okay. Oops. So again, with the compliance process, because we can put this all in effect and then be like, what now? What are we going to do? How are we going to make sure that this is followed? So I looked at a lot of different ordinances, and there's definitely some that are more strict when it comes to compliance. But if a household is in violation, they will be given a time frame to fix the violation depending on what's going on. So if they are over chickens, if they're over roosters, and we're like, hey, we need time to get this figured out, I definitely am trying to come up with a list to assist, because we have nowhere to take them. I don't want to just go to a house and be like, you need to get rid of them. Sorry, you're on your own. So I've tried to reach out to 4-H, try to reach out to some people out of county to kind of make a list to see if, hey, if we run into chickens or roosters that need to go elsewhere, would you be willing to take them if we can come and check out, make sure, you're within an ordinance, or, maybe work with Shawnee County a little bit on that. But we have no place to really say, hey, here's resources. Again, I have worked with a lot of resources in the past. I know some in Kansas City. Oops, sorry. I thought I had it in here. I know Kansas City has a lot more resources with, fowl and livestock. So I have reached out over there. There's Shy 21, I believe. They assisted us with a huge rooster situation. But if they're full, then there's not much we can do. They're going to be very selective, along with the avian flu as well. But I am trying to get a list together. So if they're just like, hey, I need these 2 surrendered, we can still take those and then try to find placement for them. Okay. So then we can also do a follow-up and make sure that they're within ordinance. If they are completely not within ordinance, if we've tried everything, we gave them resources, we can always cite them, and then we can go to court. We can let court know. However, we're not going to be seizing animals off property. We're not going to be seizing the chickens and roosters. And I just wanted to make that very clear, that we don't have the resources for that. I kind of went everywhere a little bit. I kind of put this in the back. Like I said, there's many places that can possibly take them. I am trying to get a list together. I know that I've been kind of back and forth on what is considered a fully enclosed pen. I know that is something I would like to probably clean up a little bit in our ordinance, because it is very broad. So a fully enclosed pen is considered an enclosed area that's strong enough to keep predators out. The pen needs to be made of durable material with all areas enclosed to deter animals and prevent the chickens from running at large. Like I said, some cities go as far as, wire buried under the coop and, around it for extra security. I've noticed that nothing is consistent with this ordinance all the way around. I've looked at many and they all have different definitions, what works for them. So it is one of those things where I'm still kind of putting things together to see what would work. I do feel that we do get a lot of calls of dogs getting into pens, running a large fowl, which we do cite for. So I do feel like it is something maybe that we need to clean up a little bit in our ordinance. Anything else? Because I feel like I went over a lot of things. I'm really sorry.
No, you're good. We appreciate that's what we need. So let's start with any questions from you folks or comments or to start here? Councilman Miller or Councilmember Hofer?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I like the change to the supervision when it comes to the at-large and what that means. I think if we are very clear on what at-large means when violations are, not violations necessarily, when they're just being with their foul, I don't see how we can tell folks that they're at large if they are being supervised. So I appreciate you focusing on that. I know this is set for an action item, but it sounds like we don't have this process all the way together yet. So I don't necessarily feel comfortable voting on it if we don't have those for a place for them to go or how we would follow through on violations. Until we have all of that, I think we should probably continue this, but I love where we're going with this. I think this is the right information. I really appreciate the effort you're putting in and finding out what the local ordinances around us are doing, because it sounds like Overland Park has a pretty good structure to what they're doing. So if we just have our resources of where we would take chickens and how we would collect them if we needed to, if we have all that in place, I think that's when we'd be ready to go with this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'm with you. I think we're one more conversation away, but I think we're very close. And you'll hear some of my comments here as tweaks or issue, but I do think we're close. Yeah. Councilman Hofer, did you have anything?
I want to give David a chance to
Your mic's not on.
I want to give Mr. Peterson a chance to speak since he has to leave.
Is he here? Oh, yeah.
And I so forgot the one part he was here for. So I did have it in there, 3 acres or less, no roosters.
For the roosters,
yes.
right.
And I feel like that would be the same for chickens. And if you have 3 acres or more, as long as you're following other ordinances, I don't think there should be a limit. But definitely no roosters under 3 acres.
Gotcha.
All I really have to
No,
say
please come to the mic, sir, and introduce yourself. Appreciate it. All the thousands of people online watching, of course, would like to hear you, I'm sure.
My name is Dave Peterson. I live in the Auburndale neighborhood. Just want to say thank you for the effort you put into going through this process and everything else, because I think it's something that it's been going on for a while. It needs to be addressed and before it gets even more of a problem. I guess I really don't have too many questions or whatever. I mean, some of the particulars as far as the inspections and that kind of thing, I guess it needs more refinement or whatever till we, like everybody agrees, more detail, because we're almost there. But I think it's really important. I think it's going in the right direction. So really, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have questions, comments?
I'll agree, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting close. And I noticed that enforcement would be a ways off, as much as I'd like to get it done now, since enforcement couldn't start for a while yet. I think we've got time to refine it.
And also, I did want to point out, I have tried to look for placement for fowl and livestock, and I've called every place around here, and they don't want to have a contract. It's messy. It's just one of those things where it is really hard nowadays to find someone to contract with us, because we have these situations, but we don't have it enough to just pay you all the time kind of deal. So it's one of those things where it's really hard to find someone to partner with us to take these kind of rare situations of the roosters or chickens, goats, potbelly pigs, things like that. But I have looked. I have tried.
Do we have any idea how many people in Topeka have chickens? Or is it
No,
just
a lot.
infinite?
It is definitely a lot. It has increased a lot. I don't know how to really keep that like logged between us. But I know that it has definitely been an increase of calls, especially just with random roosters and chickens running at large that just get out because of poor enclosure or things like that.
Yeah, so I agree with her. I think you've done a lot of really great work, which is why we're this close.
Yeah.
Literally, I think we're one meeting away from getting something done here and having a much larger conversation and letting the rest of the governing body have it. I think what would be helpful, maybe this is illegal. We're one of 9 cities in Kansas with populations of 50,000 or more. It would be really nice, and I think you've done all the work, but to have a very chart for dummies for us that literally says the city, what if they have a ban on roosters or not, if they have a limit on chickens, what that limit is, if they have the square footage pen, if they have a permit, it doesn't have to be too comprehensive, but I think if we just had that little chart, that would give us a reference point then to know, not just for us as we make the decision, but also for the public to know that we're doing something that's probably right in line with everybody else in Kansas. It's very similar to our size. We're not some outlier, and we're probably the outlier right now, to be honest with you. So, but I think that would be really helpful if we could take a look and give, because I'm sure other council members will ask that. What is Overland Park doing? What is Manhattan doing? What is these bigger Wichita doing? And so that would be very helpful before we make a final decision. My only other thing is 6 seems like too few for me, and I know, and I don't have chickens. I don't really, but I'm more on the 10 to 12 range. If we do it rather close to the 6 to 8, that's just a personal thing and probably a bigger policy discussion for everybody. But I'd be more comfortable with giving people a little higher, which you referenced, and that'd be fine. So
yeah, and I tried to. Obviously, I'm not like having a measuring tape to every property, but I am trying to put in consideration that if we do want to later on talk about the square footage per chicken and how much they should have, something that's reasonable. Like I said, 3 square foot per chicken is pretty reasonable if they have an outside pen, and that has to be 50 feet from everybody's dwelling. So I definitely don't think we should go over 10 because we do have a lot of places that have big backyards, but there's other places that they're a little bit more together, a little bit more confined, and I want to make sure that they can also keep their chickens as well and keep them in a healthy, adequate environment. So.
And I also don't know that a city our size with our resources needs to do a pre-inspection every time someone wants to come pull a permit. I think once they've pulled the permit, if we want to occasionally do random, hey, you've got a permit, we haven't checked you, and let we check, or if they get a call, then at least we have the ability to say, whoa, you got a permit, or you didn't, you need to get in compliance, or you have a permit, you said you were going to have no more than 10, there are 30 chickens here, right? You're not only in violation, but you have a permit. I mean, I think to that, realistically, that's one of those things we could put in place, and then we all know it's just not reasonable, and it seems like an extra undue burden to staff to have to say, especially if it turns out we have 1,000 plus homes in this community, if not more, that have chickens. There's no way you guys are gonna get out there. So I mean, I'm okay with moving forward as long as we have if we're gonna do a permit, have it. I don't know that pre-inspections are realistic.
Yeah, and I always talk with my team that before even they go to any call, to call our city clerk and be like, hey, does this, is there cats, at this address that are tagged, or are there dogs that are tagged? So we're just going to add it to the list because we don't have a list in front of us, but we always call and just make sure, because it just makes it easier. We get over there, hey, your dog's not tagged, or, things like that. So we'll just add that to the list.
Yeah. Yep, Councilman Hofer.
How do we handle baby chicks?
Some go for 12 weeks and under, and then some are stating that they can't breed at all. So when it comes to roosters are what makes the chickens have eggs that are fertilized. So if we take those roosters away, then they're not going to be fertilized. So we should not have that problem.
Okay, well, I have a former employee who got fertilized eggs and raised them, or kept them incubated and had them hatch, but I didn't know if we considered the hatchlings as a full chicken or how we handle it.
No, that would be under 12 weeks. So if they're 12 weeks and under, they would not be full chickens.
Okay.
And then they would have to also just watch out and make sure, because a lot of people actually get chickens, they think they're chickens, and they turn out to be roosters, and that's where some of the problem comes in as well.
Okay.
I think as I've looked at this, I think the goal is, what is the purpose? What do we want people to be able to own chickens for, right? It's if they want to eat them and if they want to have eggs. If you reach the point where you're wanting to hatch lots of chickens and sell them, at some point you become an industrial business who probably shouldn't be in the middle of a neighborhood doing that kind of work. You need to find another location and make that an official business that doesn't come with some of the health and safety concerns that have already been discussed
And
here.
I think that's where zoning would come into play, because if that's the case, I don't think that would technically be us if they're trying to do that. It would be a zoning issue.
Yeah, and so I think that's what these other cities done. Look for a way that makes sure
Yeah.
people can still have their poultry for its purpose, but not the next step. So yes, Councilmember Miller.
Thank you very much. Now, as we think about this, understanding what the roosters are, their purpose is there a way that if somebody has a permit to be able to have chickens, that they can have a temporary, we can have roosters for a while they try to get some chicks and try to bring up some new chickens? Because the chickens are going to die after a certain point, so you need some new chicks to replace them. So how are these people supposed to do that without having the ability to have roosters there? So I wonder if it may be we can't have them on 3 acres or less unless you're doing it for a 2 or 3 week process. I mean, I would need some experts to know how much time they need to adequately make some more chicks. But is there a way to give someone some little bit of a time with roosters?
I don't know how we'll be able to enforce that, because if we show up and someone gives us that, hey, they're here for us to fertilize, then we're going to have to come back and check on them. Again, I think we can buy them fertilized. I don't think we have a shortage around here. I'm even dealing with a house that has 30 right now, trying to get, down to a good number. And they're going pretty quickly. And I think, with us being so close to Shawnee County and other rural areas, I think that they can go and maybe get fertilized eggs there and try to get it done where it's not on their property, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Councilmember, we need to take a field trip when it's baby chick day at the
Yeah.
farm and home supply store. That's quite an event if you've never been.
Never been. I would love to go.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. I don't think we're going to take a vote on this today, but I
Okay.
think we're very close. We'll make sure it's on the next agenda, and then I think we'll have a path to
And then we can just get that.
letting the rest of the
chart
council
going.
have a crack at this thing.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Thank you. I really
All
do
right.
appreciate all the work.
Yeah,
I know it's been a
thank you.
lot of gathering of
Yeah.
information. Do we have any other public comment on this issue? All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up, 2026 legislative agenda. I don't know who's leading this, Braxton perhaps. You have the 2026 agenda in your packet. You have actually last year's and then this year's, which is very similar to last year's. Although as we talk here, I'm going to have 2 small adjustments based on new information in the world. So,
Yeah, I will.
hello, Braxton.
Good afternoon, Mayor-elect. I would like to introduce Cale Beam. Cale is going to be our lobbyist for 2026. His contract goes into effect, and he very graciously agreed to be here today so that he is listening and is cognizant of the things that we want him to do in terms of lobbying for us.
Yeah, Cale Beam with Beam Consulting Group. Looking forward to working with the City of Topeka this legislative session. I'll make sure that Braxton has my contact information if there's any information we need to discuss following this meeting. But very looking forward to working with the city this year.
Good to have you on board. Appreciate it.
So just, virtually this resolution is identical to last year's with one addition, and that is we foresee that this year there will be continued lobbying by the cable providers. Particularly, I think it's Giant was the one who introduced it last year to require municipalities to pay for the relocation expenses in the event that something in the public right-of-way would have to be relocated. And on line 79 and 80, we have added an additional item that the city opposes any efforts which would erode a city's ability to control a franchised utility's placement of facilities in the right-of-way. Currently, under our franchise agreements for all of the franchised utilities, if a utility needs to be relocated because of a public improvement project, then the franchised utility is responsible for the cost of relocating that utility. Now, if the relocation is necessary because of a private economic development project or a private project, then that developer would have to bear the cost of the relocation of that. And we firmly believe that the city needs to champion what the existing common law is relative to relocation and payment of the relocation of utilities in the right-of-way.
Yeah, that one's coming. It's going to be awesome, let me tell you. I had a meeting yesterday in my capacity with the League of Kansas Municipalities with Comcast and Charter, as they tip their hand politely to us a little bit, and I have another meeting with Cox, and they're going to tip their hand a little bit to that, and then I'll be able to come back and talk to Braxton and Kale about what's coming, we think. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a big issue. In fact, there's an interim committee on the something next week or 2 weeks, and that issue's going to come up. You know. I had a couple changes, but only if you're done.
Yep,
So.
I'm done.
Okay, so I have two suggested amendments I would like, partly because things have changed a little since even this was put together. The first is on page 1, under Finance and Taxation, Sales Tax. Line 25 and 26 have the comments that any sales tax exemptions considered by the legislature should only apply to the state portion of sales tax and not eliminate voter-approved local sales taxes. That's a little more complicated than we wrote it. Turns out they can only do that in certain instances and not others, because if not, we will, as a state, be out of what they call streamlined compliance, which is a compact we have with other states that would totally screw that up. So my first recommended amendment would be to simply, I would move to just remove that sentence from our legislative policy. The rest all makes sense, and I'm going to have an addition to it. But so that would be my first amendment that I would like to move, is to just eliminate that, since it's not really possible to the extent we put it in here.
So strike line 25, beginning at any sales tax exemptions.
Yep, all the way through line 26.
Through the end of 26.
Yep. So that would be my first motion.
You want to do these one at a time?
Yeah, because I only have 3, and they're all really simple, I promise.
Okay, then
I know famous last words, ha ha ha, but
I move to strike,
you can just second my motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, what I would like to replace it with is the following. This sentence we could put on lines 25 and 26. The state should limit sales tax exemptions and consider sunsets on any exemptions. That's actually, first of all, we just want them to limit exemptions, period. Because the case we're trying to make as a city is every time you reduce our sales tax collection, you're pushing things off to property tax, and we're all trying to lower property tax, so stop it.
Okay, repeat it.
Yep, I will. And I'll just tell you the second part of it is, and this is actually becoming more popular in the legislature, so there's people who agree with this, is any sales tax exemption that they pass moving forward should have a sunset, so that 5 or 10 years down the line, they should have to reconsider it to see if it's actually working, if it was a worthwhile sales tax exemption statewide. So my sentence would be, the state should limit sales tax exemptions and consider sunsets on any exemptions. And so I would move we just add that to the sales tax section. And I've written this down, and I'll pass it to legal or whoever would like
I'd second that.
my almost you can read handwriting.
Okay, do you consider that something like the food tax that they stopped?
No, because at this point, first of all, that's a done deal. And second,
Okay.
and that's why we'd say limit, not just never do any more sales tax exemptions.
So what's an example?
So 2 years ago, for example, they exempted all telecommunications company from paying sales tax on any new builds that they do. It's to the tune of about $17 million a year. And they did it under the auspice that the telecommunications company said, we are going to take those savings and use it to build out in rural Kansas where it's very expensive to build new telecommunication lines. Now, that's a very noble and valiant effort. But without a sunset, they're never going to be able now to go back and look at them in 5 years and say, did you actually spend the money on building out rural telecoms, or did you just pocket the cash, right?
Okay.
And so putting that sunset, so that's one example. There was a legislative post-audit report last year, not even post-audit, a report that said there are so many sales tax exemptions on the books in the state of Kansas that it now totals over $8.5 billion a year of revenue. Now, some of those are good and necessary. Some of them were passed 30, 40 years ago and have not been reviewed, and there's some efforts at the legislature to start reviewing those. But the point is, we are now crossing the $9 billion. If you look at what that equals to local municipalities across the state, it's to the tune of about 250 million plus. Billion plus, that would come back and be spread out across the municipalities. So that's a lot of revenue for us as a capital city that has been lost if you just captured a portion of that back, that we then have to make up in other areas. So that's the purpose of that concept, is just have to review the exemption every 5 or 10 years, and if you like it, keep it moving, and if you don't, make people pay the sales tax again. So that's the thought behind that change. So it'd be the state should limit sales tax exemptions and consider sunsets on any exemptions. We had a motion and a second, so you good? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, my last change, I know I said they were simple, but they never are, right, is on page 2, under the revenue neutral process, number 5, I would like us to consider adding a line. One of the discussions, revenue neutral rate is not going anywhere, but I think many of us agree it's either ineffective or not doing what it was intended to do. One of the discussions at the legislature, including legislation that was introduced last year but didn't go anywhere, would be to consider the revenue neutral rate and redefine it as including something like the rate of inflation or the consumer price index or some other similar index. The thought being, if you wanted to then vote to stay revenue neutral, you would still be able to capture, if the rate of inflation was 2.5%, you could capture that 2.5%, but if your overall valuations were 6%, you're still not capturing that 3+%, therefore saving the taxpayers that percent, right? That's the theory. So I would like us to support sort of that effort as a city and add that we ask the state to consider allowing revenue neutral to include inflation, consumer price index, or other applicable metrics.
Okay.
Because that will be looked at this year, it will be up for discussion, and I think it's important the city have a position on it, being the capital city. So we would ask the state to consider allowing revenue neutral to include inflation, consumer price index, or other applicable metrics. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any opposition to that? Or, hey, that's silly, Spencer?
No,
You
I'll
can,
second
it's
that
cool.
one.
All right. All right, if all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's all I had. Other than that, it looks great. Let's make it all happen. I guess with that, we can pass this out unless there's... Oh, yeah, sorry, Councilman member. Good, I cannot talk today. You know who you are.
I know, I definitely do. And there's an elephant in the room that we're just not having a conversation about, and I get a lot of emails about it, and I just want to get, so we can have some discussion about it. And you just talked about how City of Topeka taking the lead on some things. Where are we at? We talk about these taxes all the time. Where are we at, and what do you think our space should be in advocating for joining what a ton of states have done in trying to get marijuana as something that helps our infrastructure and helps bring in certain amount of tax money so that we're not raising taxes on people? I get the email, so I told them I would ask the question. So here I am asking the question.
It's a totally fair question. I spent 5 years lobbying on behalf of the medical marijuana industry, trying to get at least medical marijuana passed into the state. So I think that's at least a valid. I think you're going to find a pretty split council on it. I think it's an issue that I am more than happy with you to bring up if we move this on to the full council for consideration, as opposed to sticking it in today and then having them either take it out. But I think it's worthwhile to ask when we approve this or discuss it in front of the full council, because I'm with you. I mean, every study done says that as it relates to at least medical, 70% of Kansans are for it, and that there's that kind of support for it. So,
Absolutely.
like I said, I'm obviously biased. I lobbied on its behalf for years, which
Right,
I'm always very
right.
open about. It's not a secret. My name was on stuff, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's a way for us to be able to increase the taxes and lower the burdens on our citizens who are having a lot of issues paying their taxes, paying for groceries, doing all this stuff. I completely get it. It's a way, it's another option for us, and I think it would be pertinent for us to do it.
And just
Or at
because
least
we're
talk
one of
about
like only 7 states left who haven't done it, you think we should consider it? You're crazy.
Wow, I just don't want to be the last state. And 10 years ago, I thought we would be. So I'm just hoping that we can not do that.
So yes, I'm open to that conversation, but my recommendation would be we save it for the full body to talk about.
Okay.
Okay, my question would be, do we need to get this done now?
Yeah, I was.
So,
Yes.
so we should take action today and approve it and move it to the full body.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We're shooting for the December 5th. Gail, do you know off the top of your head, the Johnny County delegation is
8th,
having?
December
the
8th.
December 8th, and so after we get it through this committee, then get it in front of the council, we're trying to make that December 8th deadline so that we as staff, when we're attending that meeting to talk with our Shawnee County delegation, have clear direction and guidance from you as to what you want us to bring up with them.
Okay, then I'll move for, I guess this is an approval to
Yeah.
move it forward to the governing body.
Is that a motion to approve as amended?
Yeah.
Approve as amended.
Don't forget as amended.
I forgot it, but got it now.
Do I have a second? Or I can second. All right, you second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Braxton. Welcome, Kale. Appreciate it. All right. 4B, Citizen Government Review Committee. I assume that's you?
Yes. We are here to look at the recommendations made by the Citizen Government Review Committee. At the last meeting, I think we had discussed going through those recommendations one by one, discussing them, and I thought we were going to take up at least the first two today.
Yes, that is correct.
I don't know how you would like to do it, Chair? but-
Well, I guess we can just say recommendation 1 was the city manager form of government. I'm not sure there's any action to take here. They just said, keep it, right? I mean, is that the very short interpretation of what that first recommendation was?
Yes, Your Honor, or, excuse me, yes, Chair, I believe so. Of course, this committee can always, look at the recommendation and decide that the Citizen Government Review Committee maybe was wrong and that we should make a change, but, or you can confirm that their recommendation is
We agree with it.
correct, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said to citizens when they ask about it, we're in year, 21-ish, give or take. It was changed because citizens stepped up and decided they wanted to change it. And so I've told them, if you want to change it back, step up and do what they did 20 years ago. And until then, we're here to, I think, do the best and make the best of what we've been given and make sure that it's working for the best of people. So I don't have a recommendation that we should blow it up today, but I encourage any citizen out there who's interested to start the process if they want to. Any other comments or thoughts on recommendation 1?
I'm good with it.
All right. Recommendation 2. You want to go through that one?
In recommendation 2, the committee recommended taking no action regarding the number of council members and no action regarding the method of election and terms of the governing body. The committee did recommend acting regarding the structure and considerations of the redistricting commission. It is recommended that the members of the commission are not chosen only by council members to avoid conflicts of interest. It is also recommended that the commission remain at 9 members, but with the addition of a 10th member appointed by the administrative judge of the Topeka Municipal Court, who shall serve as the chair of the commission. The committee also recommended that it is written in the city's charter that when the redistricting commission makes its own recommendation to the governing body, the new council district lines are not made with the consideration of incumbent council members' home addresses.
Okay, a couple things. What is that in the ordinance now, or just when they do redistricting, is that actually part of policy or any ordinance to consider the home of the current council person, or has that just been a guideline that was created that they have followed?
I believe it's actually in the charter ordinance, and I
Okay.
can verify, but I believe it is in there that is already in languages in there already.
Okay, so,
I can tell you, when we had the redistricting committee, we were given a map and showed every council member's home location and told we could not move them.
okay. Yeah. Well, do you have any thoughts on whether we think that's good or bad?
For the most part, everybody was basically towards the middle. They weren't, there was only like one that was near an edge. That was it.
Yeah, me. No, I just tell
No,
you.
you're still-
I only knew that. I know I'm pretty close. I only learned that at this last redistricting. It was an issue. I was like, oh man, I'm like right on the line in one of those districts.
Well, Karen was the closest.
Oh, okay.
She literally, it was her block was the edge.
I guess that one intrigues me a little in the sense that at the state level, they don't worry about that. If they redistrict, they do it based solely on what's best in terms of what the map would look like in terms of land and population. And if that happens to move you, you got to figure it out and either move if you want to run for that district again, or get some, make some. And so I think it's at least worthy of a conversation. I guess I would like to see what that, or like get the language on what that would look like, so that it could be at least looked at, and then everyone kind of understand what it would mean and have that conversation. So whatever that entails, I think would be a good idea to write something up, and then something this group could take, this committee could then take a look at to see if they wanted to move that forward. Because I understand that concern, and I think that's going to become more of a problem when we have to redistrict next time, because if the population keeps shifting to one side of the city, it's getting harder and harder to maneuver those districts without taking that into consideration. And then that's why you get these very strange, why is there a weird loop in one district? Well, so-and-so lived there. Well, so it doesn't make sense.
Well, the other problem was you had to move Valley Glen, had 500 people in their precinct, and that was the only precinct we had to move about 500 people. And it was the only one that came close. So it can be a problem with the council person, but it's also with the number of people in a precinct. And a lot of them are well over 1,000 when we only needed to move half of that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of issues related to that.
Yep, I think it's, so if you could write that up, legal, whatever that would look like, that would be very helpful. So I have a question for I don't know who wants to come. Whoever wants to answer a question and sit in that seat, I have a question. So I don't have a concern with adding a 10th member appointed by the judge. I have a concern with it being an even number of people. So did you talk about making it 11 somehow? And I have a suggestion about how that 11th could be, but I'd rather hear if you guys had any conversations about whether it should be an even number or an uneven number, or if you even talked about that.
Right, and it came up because, and I think now more than ever, redistricting is in everybody's eyes. Also, I guess I should probably introduce myself.
Yeah, thank you.
Zach Surratt was a member of the Citizens Government Review Commission. But we also kind of modeled it off of...
Oh.
Oh, it's not even on. Okay. Zach Surratt, former member of the Citizens Government Review.
Once a member, always a member.
Right. Modeling it off of the current governing body, right? 9 members representing 9 districts, 1 at-large member that would chair. It, based on, and Councilwoman Hofer can speak to this personally, but it would really take large changes to get a real big divide in this commission. It works well for our current governing body. We thought adding that at-large member, we heard a lot about removing any possible bias from current districts, right? Currently, it's each member gets somebody from their district, and that's it, especially when they consider home district or home locations. We didn't foresee any challenges with having 10 members. It works well for the governing body. It creates some clarity on who is leading this commission. So no, we didn't really have any real issues with it.
Okay. No, I was just curious. I mean, I don't know that I do. I mean, I'm okay with this change, the recommendation that they add a 10th put forward by the administrative judge. I don't have any issues with that. I don't know about you guys.
I can tell you we didn't have really any contentious votes. Everybody was pretty much on board. Once we looked at the various plans, it became obvious. And so I think our votes were all like 8-1, 9-0. So it wasn't something where we were just split 5-5 or 5.
Yeah. 5-4,
Yeah,
4-5, or
yeah, we weren't close. It was pretty much
Gotcha.
a very solid agreement.
Okay.
And I will say, I mean, following the same rules, right? If not more than 50% approve something, then it fails, right? So it just kind of falls into the same rules. And we wanted to put the language out there, knowing that governing body could review it and make those changes wherever they see fit. But we also thought that it would make the process simpler if there were no consideration for home locations of current office holders.
Yeah.
If you just got to draw the lines cleanly, simple, independent, representative. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, as a guy who lives near the edge, that would stink, but also, it's, to your point, it's better for the process. It's one less barrier to doing it more evenly than having to factor that in.
And we want to make sure that this is set up for success, not just the next time we redistrict, but for the next however long we keep this form of government, so it may not always be the case. We may get more people that maybe fall out of a district, but we're also, again, this is how most redistricting happens, like you said, at the state level. There's really no regard.
No, they don't care. They're like, hey, sorry, you got a whole new area you have to cover. What? So, yeah. All right, so I guess,
Jim wants to say something.
Jim, yep.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor-elect, Mr. Chairman. Jim Kalp, I was the chair of the Citizens Government Review Committee, and Mr. Chairman, I'm just curious, I know you're about to run out of time. I wanted to know what the committee's protocol was going to be for these recommendations and for the additional ones, which probably are a little bit more substantive. I was under the impression that the committee would be brought in and your committee would have the opportunity to interact and have some dialogue with respect to these recommendations.
Well, I mean, I guess you've given us the recommendations. I think it's our job now to decide whether we like them or not, for lack of a better way to put it. And so I think the best we can do is go through them. And we decided at our meeting previous that taking them all 10 at once is too much.
No,
I mean,
I understand that,
yeah,
Mr.
and so
Chairman.
then our idea was if we had, like we did today, questions, needed feedback, needed reference points, if someone could be here to give us that, yes, was our thought process, this is why we did it, that's helpful to us as we then decide if it's a recommendation we want to move forward with.
Well, it'd be good if the committee were contacted with respect at future meetings of the committee, so we could be prepared to speak to and address questions regarding each of the additional recommendations. I think in previous conversations made the point that the summary recommendations that's here in the report is just that. It's greatly summarized, and the bulk of what we discussed and the context for the recommendation comes out of the video presentations and documents that were submitted at the 10, 12 meetings that the committee had.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a greatly summarized. There are points with respect to the first issue that you dealt with, city manager form of government, that I thought were significant for this committee to know and for the full governing body to know, above and beyond just the recommendation, the baseline recommendation to continue the city manager form of government. There were additional comments and issues raised that show up in the videos and in the supporting documents behind the summary recommendation.
Gotcha.
So
Well, I'll
just-
make sure.
And I don't know, with your ascendancy, I don't know, how this committee will function going forward, if you'll have meetings prior to you leaving the council. And I just want to make sure, 6 months, 5-6 months have passed since the recommendations were first presented to the governing body, and there was considerable effort put into the work of the committee, and we don't want it to die off. We want to keep these issues
Well,
alive.
and that's why we put it to this committee, and that's why we broke it down this way, so that we would make sure they didn't die off, and that we could take those recommendations and actually push them forward as actual policy versus, to your point, just, hey, thanks for doing it. It was nice to hear from you. Have a great day. And then none of them move forward. I mean, you also know that the reason we do other committees, and you guys had 12, and if you added up, probably 30 plus hours was because we can't all sit in on 30 plus hours, and we don't all have the time to go back and watch all 30 plus hours of those meetings. So we have to rely on the report that you gave us, the presentation you gave to the full council, how we distill it down into these recommendations to move those things forward. And I know in my case, I've gone back and watched some of those. I think some other committee members and council members are, but truthfully, it's not feasible for us to sit here in every meeting and go back through all of those hours to get to these recommendations. We just don't have that time.
Okay, I just would offer the suggestion, and I know you guys have a lot of things on your plate, okay? I appreciate that, I
Right.
understand that. The legislative programs, I was the city's first contract lobbyist, by the way, back in the 1990s, okay?
Yeah.
So I know you got a lot of stuff going on, but I would just ask that when the committee is going to have the recommendations on its agenda, that my committee be notified of that so people can be present and interact and provide some context above and beyond. I'm not talking about.
No, sure.
I'm not talking about summarizing hours and hours of video,
Right.
but I think there are some issues that, as you discussed with Zach, something that goes beyond just the few words in the summaries.
Sure. And I'll make sure that staff we can get that if we don't, or everybody who's on that committee's contact information, so when it pops up on an agenda, they can send that notice out to everybody, and then whichever members of the committee can be here, that'd be great.
Okay.
We'll make sure we
Thank you.
loop them into those notices that we send out. So sorry.
I'm going to add real quick. Going into next year, I don't know if we're going to tackle anything next month or not, but going into next year, what has not been finished will automatically transfer to next year. Not knowing who's going to be on which committee yet, but it will transfer. TGT committee has a couple things on their agenda for next year that they're going to look at. That information is going to be passed forward. So it's not going to get dropped or anything like that. It's when we meet and when then the next group starts meeting.
Councilmember Miller?
I would second that. My hope is that I continue on the policy and finance, and if not, I will hope that the people who do get on it will continue this conversation because the information does not get lost and the momentum behind making sure that this review is done by this committee is not going to be lost just because Spencer is going up to be the mayor. We will make sure that this is front and on our minds beginning next month, or I'm saying in 2026, just like she said. But no, your recommendations and the committee recommendations will certainly be on our agendas.
And I'll reiterate that. I obviously won't be on this committee next year, but I'll tell you this one's important enough as mayor. I will make sure this committee's doing it, and I will come if I have to and be like, work on it. Why is it not on the agenda? Let's get it done. So I think we're all committed to making sure these things move forward.
Is this the last meeting of this committee for this year?
I don't know that yet. We'll have that conversation later. Yeah, we don't know. I need to talk to staff to see if they need some stuff in December or not. So we haven't made that determination yet.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I will add in January, until everybody's set up for the new positions, like deputy mayor, some of the other ones we have to vote on, the committees won't be set until probably late January. Does that sound about right?
Yep, mid-January.
So probably not meeting in January, but try and start meeting in February. So that's just a heads up so you know.
Mr. Chairman, could I- 30 seconds more?
Yep.
But one of the reasons I'm asking for the timeline is I think, in my opinion, the most substantive recommendation the committee made was for the creation of the office of a city auditor. And I know it takes time to build that into the budget. You can't do it for this budget year, but even to get it into the next budget year, there needs to be discussion as soon as possible.
Understood. Yeah. And those discussions honestly will happen starting late March, early April for budget considerations. Yep.
January would be nice.
Yeah. Well,
Well, we have our,
Thank you.
thank you.
we have the retreat.
All right, so based on two, I'm going to make two suggestions. First one, what we talked about, getting the language of what it would look like if we didn't consider where people lived. The second one is, I'm going to go ahead, I would move to go ahead and forward the change of adding the 10th member appointed by the administrative judge and direct staff to write that up and put it on a future council agenda. And I think part of the reason we're doing this and this is so that we can give the council it in digestible pieces. This seems one we're good with. I would just move that we go ahead and recommend that be passed on to give legal the authority to write that up and put it on a future agenda. That would be my suggestion on the administrative judge piece. Any thoughts about that?
I'm good.
I'm fine with it. We can have that bigger discussion at the time.
I'll take a second.
Oh, second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Was that understandable, legal? Okay. Yep. No reason to hold on to it just for the sake of holding on to it. All right. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate you and the committee. Didn't know your work would be months after.
We'll be here.
All right. Do any of my committee members have any other items?
No, sir.
All right, I have one, and I'm only going to be able to half explain this. So it is my understanding, based on the conversation, it's actually in our legislative policy, one of our things we have concerns with is this home-based business bill that the legislature is considering, which is truly awful, and we'll go fight them on that. But one of the discussions that came up in the legislature last year and is now being used as an example of why they need a bill like this is because they claim in the city of Topeka, if I want to sell things on eBay, I need a permit. Now, two things. If that's true, honestly, I find that a bit ridiculous. And two, if it's true, we don't need to be the shining example of why the state needs a home-based business bill. So I guess my question, legal, not today, you don't have to answer today, but that is, could you look into that and see what in our ordinances would require someone to have to go get, if they just want to sell things on Etsy or eBay, a city permit, and how we could maybe clean that up? Because if that's true, I think most of us didn't realize that. My guess is it's an unintended consequence of something else that was passed years ago in an ordinance, and we'd all be happy to clean that up. So that is my request today of the city staff, is to take a look into that. And I know if you talk to Dan Warner, he may be able to provide a little more context and insight into that. But I definitely want them to stop talking about it at the legislature. Plus, I don't want people to have to get a permit. Man, I've sold some stuff on eBay. I guess, did I just admit a crime? I don't know. All right, anything else? Anything else from staff? No? Anything else from community? All right, well, do I have any here for public comment of any kind? This is your chance. Speak now or else. All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.